If you have some knowledge or experience in SQL, then you may be familiar or you have come across this GroupBy clause in SQL. So it looks like this. Just allows you to group rows that have same values, and you can apply some aggregate function. Now in Pandas, this is similar to the SQL GroupBy. Now in this video, we're going to look at GroupBy in Pandas, which is a powerful method that allows us to group a data frame by one or more columns, and then apply some aggregate functions such as sum, mean, count, and so on and so forth. Then we, from each of those groups, we calculate the summary statistics. Now, the resulting object most times is a new data frame or a series, depending on the context of your data. So let's look at an example. And by the way, this is how the syntax looks like, but let's look at an example. Now, in our first example, let's create a data frame. This data frame, so we just use the PD data frame. We use a dictionary key value pair. We create the first column, product ID, food product, brand, sales, and profit, right? And each of these have the corresponding data, values, right? So when we run this, you can see we now have a data frame here in a well-formatted table. Okay. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and use the GroupBy, right? The GroupBy method or function from Pandas. Now, what we do here, we can, so it takes two arguments here. So we want to group by the first column, food product. Then we also want to group by sales, right? And then dot here, we want to return all the elements that are unique, right? And also want to return a count of all the unique elements for each of these positions, whether in food product and sales. You can see we have repetitions here, right? For food product, we have cakes here, beverages, right? We want to have a unique count for each of these, okay? Group all that. Same for sales, corresponding to that. And then this last function here, we're just saying return a data frame of the same. So we can see here the resulting object is actually a data frame, right? With a count of unique items in food product. And we can see how many beverages we have too. We can see confirmed here. This is a small data set. So this is very useful, especially if we have a very large data set. We can extend this further by also, resetting the index. Again, we can also, do some aggregate function. So for example, here we can say, okay, so we want to get the sum, right? So group by food product sales, and then use this sum aggregate function and apply on the sales, right? So this will return a data frame object, and then we apply this on the sales column, right? Return that as a data frame. Then we also reset the index. Now, resetting the index just improves the readability and for data manipulation. So if we do that, we can already see here, we've reset the index 0, 1, 2, 3. It's easier just to read and also for manipulation purposes, right? Then we can see here, we've gotten the sum for all the cells corresponding to this cluster of food products. So as you can see here, how we use the GroupBy function can be very powerful. Also, we could, suppose we want to sort, right? By cells, right? We can also add another function here, sort underscore values by cells. Then we just pass an argument here by cells, right? So we run that. You can see here, by default, this is by, you can see here, I believe this is by from the smallest value to the largest value. So we can actually even override that and say, we can actually say ascending, let's see, ascending, we could actually say ascending equals to false, right? Equals to false, and this will actually just override that. So if we run this again, we can see we force this to start from the largest sales revenue, right, to the smallest, so in descending order. So these are very useful function when you want to sort your large data set based on some value here, some column, and whether you want to make it descending or ascending. Okay, again, lastly here for this example, you can also group by and sort of just add different aggregate functions. So we can use this ag method, and we want to apply some aggregate function on our cells column. So in this case, we want to get the minimum, want to get the maximum, want to get the mean, right? So we do that, we'll see we generate like 3 columns. So for beverages, we can see we have the minimum value here is 5,500, max is 9,000, and the mean, rather the average for all the data, right, in this cluster of food products there. Actually, I could even go ahead and add here. We'll just want to get the sum. You can notice that we add another column that just gets us the sum for all the values in this cluster. Okay. So let's look at another example here. So suppose we just create another sample data set. We have 3 columns with associated values. So we can use the group by function here to group by our data frame or new data frame based on department and salary. And then we can use this that mean to calculate the mean for the salary, right? When we print this out, you can see now we have grouped this by department, but now we've we perform average or mean on our salary, right? So in IT, we can see that the minimum salary in the IT department is 80,000, right? Suppose we have so much entries here, value. So, and again, this is useful. We can easily get to know which department have a, which employees in each department are paid much better than other departments. Okay, another example here, we've just created another data set here, math score, science score, grade, and name columns, right? We print out the data frame, and then we want to perform mean, right? So first of all, just want to group by grade, right? When we group by grade, we just get the unique values. So it'll be 10, 11, and 12, right? Then we apply the mean for the remaining columns and just get the mean for the math score, science score for each of those grades, right? So we do that, and you can see that in grade 10, actually from here, you can actually tell the math score for grade 12 is higher than the math score for grade 10, okay? And no surprises there. So you can see all of them have some correlation. All right, so in our last example, we can also see that we can generate a sample data set. So let's say this is a product data set, right? Maybe you work in a warehouse, or you work for Amazon, for example, or retail company, right? We have the order column, date, customer ID, and price, okay? We store that into a data frame. And now, suppose now we want to group our customers based on their revenue, based on the revenue for each customer. To do this, we're going to use the group by function. Say we want to group this by the customer ID, right, over here. Again, we want to group and get the revenue, right, for the price, total revenue. So to do that, we're going to use the aggregate function. So essentially here, we're just saying, all right, so we want to group by customer ID, then apply this sum function on top of the price to get the revenue, total revenue, return that as a data frame, and then reset the index, okay, for easier viewing and manipulation, right? So we do that. You can see, again, we have a nice table here, even though it doesn't seem that it's kind of sorted. So we can go an extra step and sort of try to, sort this data based on some parameter, maybe ascending or descending. So again, we run that, and we can see all we did was just to add this. So we could add, because already we have our data frame here. So we use that data frame here, call this function sort underscore values. Then we pass 2 arguments. We want to group by, or rather want to sort by price, right? But now for that price, we want to make sure that's actually descending, right? Meaning we start from the largest value to the lowest value, right? So based on this example, we can see how a group buy can be very powerful, especially if you're in the retail industry. It helps us to identify who our most valuable customers, for example, right? Again, we can also detect or examine or investigate, some of the customer behavior and preferences. And lastly, it allows us to make some decisions about probably the pricing, how to perform customer segmentation based on where to push our promotions based on the data we are seeing, and also marketing, right? So all in all, we've seen how GroupBy is actually a very powerful function that has some implication on how we explore and analyze data in Pandas, right? In fact, GroupBy just allows us to split a data frame over some criteria, right? Which makes our work much more easier and very efficient. Okay. And lastly, here I just want to point it out that the GroupBy function can be used to calculate, right, summary statistics, right, for different groups of data. Like we've already seen, we could use a mean, sum, and whatnot, right? Also, you can also filter data based on specific criteria, right? And lastly here, last but not least, we can transform data using custom functions. We can see the GroupBy has different methods, different functions, which we can customize and create a new data frame that actually answers some of our if questions, right? Or maybe just summarizes our data frame or creates a new data frame based on some criteria. And lastly, we can see that you can also apply pivot tables and cross tabulations, right? As you gain more experience, you'll see how that kind of just gels in together. All right.